When my mother died, I didn't cry. Not at the funeral, not when I packed her things. The tears didn't come until the reading of the will. That's when the real betrayal began. She left me the house. It wasn't big, but it was filled with her. I had been living there quietly, trying to heal. It was the only place that felt like home. Then one day, my father showed up with his wife, my stepmother. I hadn't seen him in years. He left when I was a child and never came back. No calls, no help, nothing. I opened the door and there they were, standing like they had every right to be there. No warning, no explanation. Just fake smiles and forced warmth. I felt sick. They said they just wanted to talk. I let them in, unsure why I didn't slam the door. They walked around like they were inspecting something. Then it started. He said calmly that I should sign the house over. Said it was time to let the real family have what they deserved. I stared at him, confused. He kept talking as if I owed him something. His wife joined in, her voice sharp. She said my mother would have wanted them to have it. That I was being selfish. That I was holding on to something that wasn't really mine. I told them to leave. They didn't move. She raised her voice, called me ungrateful, said cruel things about my mother. I told them again, get out. My hands were shaking. I could barely breathe. But they stood there, acting like they belonged. Like I was the one who needed to go. Eventually, they left, saying we'd talk again soon. I locked the door and sat on the floor, holding one of my mother's scarves. The house felt different now. Like they had already taken something from it just by being there. The next day, I went to work early, trying to keep my mind off it. I told myself they wouldn't dare come back. I was wrong. When I got home, their car was in the driveway. I opened the door and stepped inside. They were there. His wife was in my mother's room, wearing her robe. My father sat in the living room, relaxed, like it was normal. I asked what they were doing. He said they were just staying temporarily. He had a key, one he'd kept from years ago. He claimed he still had rights to the house. I knew he was lying. I tried calling the police. They said it was a civil matter. Without proof, they couldn't force them to leave. That night, I sat in the back of the closet, surrounded by my mother's clothes. The house smelled like her, but it didn't feel safe anymore. They weren't going to leave on their own. And I wasn't going to let them take what she left me. When I walked up to the house, I already felt something was off. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and stopped. They were there, my father and his wife, moving around like it was their home. His wife was in my mother's bedroom, wearing her robe like she owned the place. My father turned and looked at me calmly, not surprised to see me. He said they were just staying for a little while, until things are sorted. I asked them what they were doing. I told them they had no right to be there. My father didn't raise his voice. He spoke like nothing was wrong. He said they needed a place to stay, and since this was family property, it made sense. I told them to leave, but they didn't listen. His wife just smiled at me and walked into the kitchen like it was hers. I felt my chest tighten. I said again that they had to leave now. My father leaned against the wall and said he had a key. He held it up like it proved something. I didn't know how he still had one, but he did. He said he got it back when he and my mother were still together, and that made it legal. Then he said something else that made my stomach drop. He claimed he was still on the deed. That was a lie. I knew it. My mother had told me she took his name off everything during the divorce, but I didn't have the papers to prove it right then. I picked up my phone and called the police. I told them strangers were in my house and wouldn't leave. When the officers arrived, I thought they would help. I told them what was happening. My father acted calm and polite. He showed them the key. He told them he was part of the family and had every right to be there. The police listened. They asked if I had any documents to prove I was the only owner. I didn't have them on me. They said without proof, it was a civil matter. They couldn't remove him. I stared at them, not believing what I was hearing. My stepmother stood there behind them, arms crossed, smiling like she had already won. I wanted to scream. After they left, I stood in the hallway, feeling small in my own home. Every room felt like it was slipping away from me. I walked into my mother's closet, shut the door, and sat down on the floor. Her things still hung there, neat and clean, just like she left them. The smell of her perfume was still in the air. I leaned my head against the wall and cried. Not soft tears, but the kind that come from deep inside when you feel powerless. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in that closet thinking, they weren't going to leave. They weren't going to stop. They were going to take everything if I didn't do something. I wiped my face, stood up, and made a decision. I was going to fight back. I was going to get a lawyer. I wasn't going to let them take what my mother left me, not without a fight. I sat on the edge of the bed, still feeling lost. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Every corner reminded me they were there, walking through rooms they didn't belong in. I felt trapped. But deep down, I knew this didn't start now. This went back years. I began to remember the past. My father wasn't always distant, just absent. He left us when I was a kid. One day he was there, and the next he was gone. No warning, no goodbye. My mother cried for weeks. I asked where he went, and she just said, "He's not coming back." I didn't understand it then. Later, I learned he had left us for another woman, the same woman now standing in my mother's bedroom, wearing her robe, acting like this house belonged to her. He cheated and walked away, like we didn't matter. After he left, he never called, never wrote, never sent money. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us going. She never spoke badly about him, but I saw how hard it was for her. I saw the sadness she carried even years later. He never helped. Not once. We didn't see him again. Not for a long time. The only time I saw his face was at my mother's funeral. He showed up near the end, stood in the back, didn't say a word, and left without speaking to me. That was it. Now suddenly he was here, smiling, calm, trying to take everything she left me. It wasn't grief that brought him. It was something else. I started to think about it more. Why now? Why show up after all this time? I talked to my lawyer and asked what I could do. She told me if my father had given up his rights during the divorce, we could fight this. We just needed proof. That gave me a little hope. I began looking through my mother's old files. She kept boxes of papers in the attic and in her closet. Bills, letters, envelopes she never threw away. I searched through them for hours. In the middle of it all, something clicked. This wasn't just bad luck. This was planned. My father didn't suddenly care about me. He needed something. He needed the house. I thought about how they showed up together, how they moved in so quickly, like they already knew what they were doing. I looked him up online. I searched everything I could find. Slowly, the truth came out. He was in debt. Deep debt. Credit cards, loans, unpaid bills. It was worse than I thought. His wife had lost her job a few months earlier. They were struggling. That's why they were here. Not for family. Not for memories. They wanted something free. They thought they could take it from me because I was alone. But I wasn't going to let them win. I kept digging. I knew the papers had to be somewhere, proof that he gave up all rights when he left. My mom would have kept them. She always kept things that mattered. I just had to find them. And I would. I came home just like any other day. I walked up to the door, pulled out my key, and tried to unlock it. It didn't work. I tried again, thinking maybe I had the wrong key. But the lock had been changed. I knocked hard, feeling panic rise in my chest. After a few moments, the door opened. My father stood there, looking calm like nothing was wrong. He said I had abandoned the house and that they were now living there. I told him this was my home, the one my mother left to me. He didn't care. He said since I hadn't slept there the night before, I gave up my right. He said they had squatters' rights now. I told him this was insane. He just shrugged and said I wasn't thinking clearly. He told me I was letting grief cloud my judgment. He said I was acting unstable and being dramatic. His words stung. He talked to me like I was a child, like I didn't understand what was happening in my own life. I called the police again, but they said it was still a civil issue. Without a court order or proof, they couldn't force anyone out. I stood there on the porch, trying not to break down in front of them. I had nowhere else to go that night. I didn't want to ask anyone for help, so I ended up sleeping in my car. It was cold and uncomfortable. I stared up at the roof of the car and wondered how everything had gotten so bad so quickly. This was supposed to be my home. My mother left it to me so I would have a place to feel safe. Now I wasn't even allowed inside. The next morning, I used my phone to check social media. I almost dropped it when I saw what came up. My stepmother had posted pictures of the inside of the house. She wrote things like fixing up my new place and can't wait to redecorate this space. She was standing in the living room, smiling like she had won something. It was all so fake. She even wore the same robe I had packed away from my mother's room. I felt sick. I wanted to scream. They weren't just taking the house. They were acting like it had always been there, like I was never part of it. That same day, I met with my lawyer. She saw how upset I was and told me we could try to file for an emergency court order. It might take a few days, but she said we had a strong case if we could get the right document. I agreed. We had to do something before they ruined everything. Later that evening, I was still feeling lost when a close friend called. She said something that made me sit up straight. She told me my mom once mentioned leaving something important in a safe deposit box. I had never heard about it before, but it sounded like something my mom would do. She was always careful, always thinking ahead. Maybe there was something there, something I could use. I had no idea what it might be, but suddenly I had a little bit of hope, just enough to keep going. The next morning, I went straight to the bank. My friend had told me my mom might have left something behind. I didn't know what to expect, but I gave the bank manager my ID and waited while he checked. After a few minutes, he returned with a small key and led me to a quiet room. Inside was a safe deposit box. He unlocked it and stepped out, leaving me alone. I opened the box with shaking hands. Inside, there was a folder and a sealed envelope with my name on it. Just seeing her handwriting made my eyes sting. I sat down, took a deep breath, and opened the letter. It was written in my mom's voice, the same calm and caring tone I remembered so well. She said, If your father shows up, don't trust him. He will try to take the house. I left it to you for a reason." Her words hit me hard. It was like she knew what was going to happen. She said she hoped things wouldn't come to this, but if they did, I had to stay strong. She reminded me that the house was mine, not because I asked for it, but because I deserved it. I read the letter 3 times. I cried the whole way through. It was the first time I had felt close to her since she passed. Even though she was gone, she was still protecting. Beneath the letter was a thick file of documents. I opened it and started reading. They were the original divorce papers, clear and official. One page stood out. A form where my father had signed away all rights to the property 14 years ago. His signature was clear, right next to my mom's. There was also another paper, one I had never seen before. It was a signed agreement that said he would never contest her will or claim any part of her estate. He had agreed to it in writing. I couldn't believe it. Everything I needed was here. My mom had saved these papers, hidden them away for this exact moment. She must have known he might come back someday. She made sure I would have proof, even if she wasn't around to fight for me. I took the documents and the letter straight to my lawyer. She looked through everything carefully, nodding as she read. She said this changed everything. With these papers, we had a real chance. My father's story wouldn't hold up. His lies about the deed, his fake rights, none of it would stand in court. For the first time in days, I felt something other than fear. I felt relief. I felt like I could breathe again. I still missed my mom with all my heart, but now I felt her beside me. She hadn't left me empty-handed. She knew how he was. She knew I'd need help. I walked out of the lawyer's office, holding the folder tight to my chest. I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. Let them try to take the house now. They weren't going to win. The court day finally came. I sat in the courtroom, trying to stay calm. My hands were cold, but I held on to the folder tightly. My lawyer sat beside me, ready with all the documents we had found. I looked across the room and saw my father and his wife sitting there like nothing was wrong. She smiled once when our eyes met. I looked away. When it was his turn to speak, my father stood up and acted like he cared about me. He told the judge I wasn't thinking clearly. He said I was not handling my mother's death well. He said I was unstable and confused. His words didn't even shake. It was like he had practiced every sentence. Then he gave the judge a few papers. He claimed they were letters from my mother, written before she died. In those letters, he said, she asked him to take the house and look after it. He said she changed her mind and wanted the house to stay with the family. He said she told him everything, just not in front of anyone else. His wife took the stand next. She cried. She wiped her tears and told the court that I was being unfair. She said I was angry and keeping them from what my mother truly wanted. I stayed silent. I didn't even blink. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood up and showed the real will. It clearly said the house was mine. Then she gave the judge the divorce papers, where my father had signed away all rights to the house. She also showed the letter my mom had written to me, warning me not to trust him. The judge looked through the papers slowly, reading every word. Next, my lawyer called in a handwriting expert. He had studied the letters my father brought. He stood in front of the judge and said clearly and simply that they were not written by my mother. He pointed out all the small signs, different strokes, wrong pressure, even shaky lines that showed someone had copied her writing. My heart felt heavy, but also steady. The truth was finally being seen. The judge didn't say much after that. He looked at all of us and said he needed more time before making a final decision. He set a date for the next hearing. I nodded. I was patient. I could wait. Outside the courtroom, I walked past my father. He leaned close and whispered, "This isn't over." His voice was low but sharp. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had already pressed record on my phone before leaving the courtroom. I had his words saved. I walked away without looking back. I wasn't scared anymore. I had everything I needed. Truth, proof, and my mother's voice in that letter. They tried to fool the court, but I knew they wouldn't win. Not this time. My father stood in front of the judge, silent now. His lies had finally caught up with him. The courtroom was quiet as my lawyer played the audio recording. His voice filled the room, low and angry. "This isn't over." You could hear the threat clearly. No one could explain that away. The judge looked straight at him. All the fake stories, all the false papers, the tears from his wife, they didn't matter anymore. The truth was out. He wasn't the victim. He wasn't the owner. He had tried to take what wasn't his, and now everyone could see it. My lawyer didn't need to say much more. She had already shown the will, the divorce papers, and my mother's letter. She had backed it all with facts and clear proof. There was nothing left for them to say. The judge took a deep breath and then gave the ruling. He said the house was legally mine. He said my father and his wife had no right to live there, and they were to leave the property immediately. A court officer would make sure it happened. He also warned them that any more trouble would lead to further consequence. I sat there, still and quiet, but inside I felt something shift. Relief. Finally. After court, I drove straight home. I should have felt safe. But when I opened the front door, I stopped cold. Everything was wrong. Spray paint covered the walls. The words were angry and cruel. Furniture was smashed. My mother's books and dishes were thrown on the floor, broken into pieces. It felt like walking into a storm that had already passed, leaving nothing but damage. I moved from room to room, trying to take it all in. The bedroom was destroyed. Her blanket was ripped. The mirror was shattered. When I got to the hallway, I saw the worst of it. The portrait of my mother, my favorite photo of her, was ruined. The frame was broken, the picture torn. I picked it up carefully, my hands shaking. I didn't cry. Not right then. I was too tired for tears. I just felt numb. I called the police. They came quickly, took photos, asked questions. I showed them everything. I told them who had been in the house. The officers were quiet at first. Then one of them said clearly, "This looks like vandalism with intent." He handed me a report to fill out and told me to press charges. I did. The next day, my lawyer helped me file charges: vandalism, trespassing, and fraud. She also helped me get a restraining order. I didn't want them near me again. Not ever. But she didn't stop there. She said we could sue them for everything they damaged and for what they put me through. The broken things, the ruined memories, the fear, the stress, it all mattered. I agreed. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about everything they had done. All the lies, all the harm. They tried to scare me. They tried to break me. But instead, they showed me how strong I could be. Now, I'm not just fighting to keep what's mine. I'm fighting for justice. And I won't stop until they're held accountable for every single thing. I started with the living room. The spray paint was still fresh, the words still sharp. I opened the windows, grabbed cleaning supplies, and began scrubbing the walls. It took hours. The paint didn't come off easily, but I kept going. Bit by bit, the words disappeared. I painted over what I couldn't clean. I didn't want to see their hate anymore. I fixed what I could. I threw out the broken table and replaced it with a small one from the garage. The couch was beyond repair, so I let it go too. It hurt, but I reminded myself that a clean space was better than holding on to something ruined. I folded up the torn blankets and bagged them for trash. The whole time, I stayed quiet, focused. This was my home again, and I was going to make it mine. In the hallway, I picked up the broken frame of my mother's portrait. I couldn't save the picture, but I kept the pieces. I would find a copy somewhere, maybe in one of her old albums. I wiped the wall clean and rehung other photos of her, ones from her younger years, ones where she was smiling. It made the space feel warm again, like she was there with me. In her bedroom, I found the robe they had taken. I didn't want to touch it at first, but I couldn't throw it away either. I washed it twice and folded it neatly. I placed it in the top drawer with care. It wasn't just a robe. It was part of her. It smelled like her perfume again, and that brought me comfort. While I was cleaning out one of the drawers, I found something unexpected. Behind some folded scarves, there was a small jewelry box I had never seen before. I opened it slowly. Inside was a silver pendant with a blue stone. I remembered it. My mom used to wear it all the time when I was little. I thought it was lost years ago. I held it for a long time before putting it around my neck. It felt right, like I had found a small piece of her again. It was something they didn't take, something they didn't know about. And now it was back with me. A week later, my lawyer called with an update. My father had refused to follow the court's orders about the financial judgment. He was supposed to start paying what he owed, but he didn't. So the court took action. He was arrested for failing to comply. I didn't feel happy or angry, just calm. Actions have consequences. His wife, the one who did most of the damage in the house, was also facing charges. The police had gathered enough evidence to charge her for destruction of property. I had seen the way she smiled while ruining what wasn't hers. Now she had to answer for it. My lawyer spoke to me about the next step. She said I could sue them for more than just the damage to the house. She talked about emotional stress, pain, and everything I had gone. She said I had a strong case, and she would help me file it. I didn't answer right away. I sat with the thought for a while. Then I said yes. This wasn't about getting revenge. It was about standing up for myself. They had caused harm that went beyond broken. They had taken my peace, my sense of safety, and tried to take my mother's memory too. Now I was taking it all back. One room, one memory, one step at a time. And I wasn't afraid anymore. The lawsuit took time, but she waited patiently. She showed up to every meeting, answered every question, and gave every document her lawyer asked for. She didn't let anger guide her. She stayed calm and steady. She wanted to see it through to the end, not just for herself, but for her mother too. When the final court date came, she sat quietly as the judge spoke. He looked at all the papers, listened to both sides, and gave his decision. He said they owed her money for everything they had done, damages to the house, pain they caused, and all the legal costs. It was more than she expected. She didn't smile, but she felt the weight in her chest begin to lift. Her father and stepmother didn't take the news well. They didn't have the money, so they were told to sell what they could. A few weeks later, she heard from her lawyer that they sold their car and some furniture. It still wasn't enough to cover everything, but it was a start. She didn't feel sorry for them. They made their choices. She took the money and thought carefully about what to do with it. She didn't want to waste it. One night, she remembered a story her mother once told her about helping girls who had lost parents. Her mother always believed in kindness and second chances, so she used some of the money to create a small scholarship. It was for girls who had lost their mother or father, but wanted to keep going with school or life goals. She gave it her mom's name. It wasn't big, but it felt right. Her mom would have liked it. Not long after that, her father tried to contact her. First through messages, then through calls. He said he wanted to talk. Maybe to say sorry, or maybe to ask for more. She didn't care. She didn't want to hear from him ever again. She blocked his number and deleted every message. It didn't hurt. It felt clean. Quiet. The house was peaceful again. No noise. No fear. No one walking in without knocking. She cooked in the kitchen, listened to music in the living room, and read books by the window. Her mother's pictures were back on the walls. The robe stayed folded in the drawer. The pendant still hung around her neck. One afternoon, she went outside with a screwdriver and a small silver plate. She walked to the front of the house and removed the old nameplate. The new one was simple. It just had her name on it, nothing more. She placed it carefully and stepped back to look at it. It felt different now. The house didn't just belong to her on paper. It felt like it belonged to her in every way. She had fought for it. She had protected it. She had made it whole again. She stood there for a while, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in a long time, she felt calm, not just in her body, but in her heart. It was her home, and no one could take that away. They tried to take my mother's house, but what they really tried to take was her legacy. The home she built, the life she worked hard for, the memories she left behind. None of it was just bricks and walls. It was her love, her strength, and her trust in me. They thought they could erase all of that, but they couldn't. Now they have nothing. No power, no lies left to tell. And I have everything worth keeping. Not just the house, but peace. My mother's love still lives here. I feel it in every room I cleaned, every photo I put back, every corner that feels like hers again. I didn't win alone. I had help, people who stood beside me when I felt like falling. My lawyer, who believed in me from the beginning. My friend, who gave me hope when I was running out of it. Even kind strangers who listened to my story and said, "You're not wrong. Keep going." I'll never forget them. Fighting was hard. Some nights I cried until I fell asleep. Some mornings I woke up and didn't want to face anything. But I kept going, because my mother would have, because she trusted me to protect what mattered. That trust gave me strength. She gave me more than a roof to live under. She gave me the courage to stand tall when I was scared. She showed me how to hold on to the truth, even when others tried to cover it with lies. I never thought I could be strong, but I was. I am. Now I'm thinking about the future. I've started looking into law school. It's something I never imagined for myself. But after everything I faced, I want to help others who are trapped like I was. People who are bullied, lied to, or pushed out of their own homes. I know how it feels to be unheard, and I want to be the voice they need. Every night, I still sleep with my mother's letter under my pillow. It reminds me of her, of how she thought ahead, of how she protected me, even when she wasn't here anymore. It's my comfort, my reminder that love doesn't end with goodbye. There was no big celebration, no loud moment when I shouted, "I won." That's not how it feels. It feels quiet, calm, like taking a deep breath after holding it for too long, like finally feeling safe, like finally feeling seen. This house is mine now, not just because of the court ruling, not just because of papers, but because I fought for it. I stood up for what's right, and I didn't let them take what wasn't theirs. My mother would be proud, and that's the only victory I ever needed. Believe in rising after betrayal? Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Like, comment your thoughts, and follow for more real-life stories of courage and self-love. Your journey to strength begins now. Let's walk it together. The best gift for a loved one is the power to heal.